Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Game day episode of Canucks Conversation, folks. My name is Dave Gugelli. Joining me is Harman Dial. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all the games, home and away. Tonight, if you wanted to, you could go down to Greta and watch the game tonight. Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. You've got the arcade, you've got the bar, you've got the street food, and of course, you've got the game, home or away. It is the place to be. Weekly drink specials. Greta Bar YVR is the spot that you want to be at on game days. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. I'm pumped, Harm. I didn't realize how pumped I was until I saw scenes from Morning Skate from Jeff. Jeff's going to join us on today's show. But as soon as scenes from Morning Skate, our game day article over at Canucks Army, as soon as that was submitted to the WordPress for editing, I had that we're back moment.
It's also a bit more exciting because last year it started with a split squad. And so the first preseason game that I watched, that was virtual. It was the 10-1 beatdown that the Flames had against what was essentially the Abbotsford Canucks, where the Flames dressed a bunch of their veterans, but the Canucks in Calgary didn't have many of their veterans. I think Jet Wu got lit up for 7 goals against that game. Whereas in this one, I'm looking at the lineup on both sides and I'm thinking, there are some legitimately interesting storylines to watch. It's not just a roster full of AHL players on both sides where you're not really that intrigued to see what unfolds. There's going to be players on the Canucks side that are going to be hungry to make a strong impression. And I'm really excited to dress up, head down to Rogers Arena and catch a game in person for the first time since Game 7 of round 2.
I'll also be there tonight. I have to address this off the top. Busy show today, but I want to start with this. These behind me, lovely fiance went on. She got like a targeted ad on Vanbase, the Canucks team store, of like game used player socks, and they were like $10. And she's like, "I'm gonna buy these." And I was like, "Okay, do what you want." And then we got them, and we realized that they would fit really nicely there. So they're XL. I don't know whose they are, but they block shots. So like I'm throwing out a guess that it's Myers, but maybe next time I see him, I'll ask him if he wears double XL. I don't know if he would wear XL. I feel like he might be a double, triple XL guy. He's got the long legs, but they block shots, whoever it is, heart and soul. So I don't know who they are.
Would be good for your brand.
Oh, it would be really good if these were Noah Juleson socks, Harm. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for mentioning that. I think we can end the show right there because if I have game used Noah Juleson socks behind me, that's just too good.
You'd be the only person on this planet interested in hanging that up on the wall.
That's right. Hang them up from the rafters. Okay, we've got a lot here. We've got a lot to get to. Jeff Paterson's going to join us today. Skate ran a little late. He talked to Kevin Lankinen, so we'll get his instant reaction to that. Kevin Lankinen spoke a little bit later than expected, so Jeff's got to race home and then hop on Canucks Convo. He's going to join us in about 25-30 minutes time, maybe a little sooner. I don't know, but I don't really care because there's so much to talk about. There's a lot to get to. I was going to save this for anyone else, but you brought up the split squad thing, Harm. See, last night, the Oilers lose to the Flames in two different cities.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too good. Like it's too good. And all the Oilers fans are like, we don't even care. You care. You care. Just stop.
Nah, they don't care. I mean, for Flames fans, they may as well just stop the season right there, right? That's the peak. You beat Edmonton twice in one night. It's like you've already peaked. It's only going to go downhill from here. But yeah, that was pretty funny. Also, just the visual of Connor McDavid setting up Zach Hyman to cut the deficit to 4-1. And I don't know. There was just something about the lack of celebration and all of that made it pretty funny.
Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to knock the lead down to
literally
32. Yeah. Okay. Let's get to the Canucks, Harm. Let's get to what we've talked about today with the Vancouver Canucks. And oddly enough, our preview today is brought to you by the Vancouver Whitecaps. Vancouver Whitecaps FC are hosting the TELUS Canadian Championship on Wednesday, September 25th with a 7 p.m. kickoff at BC Place. The Caps are looking to three-peat as winners of the Voyageurs Cup and will be taking on Toronto FC, who they beat for the Cup in an epic shootout in 2022. With a win, the Caps can book their spot into the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup. There's a free t-shirt available for the first 10,000 fans and 50% off all beverages until kickoff, so get there early. Also, the Whitecaps are hosting a Toronto FC merch exchange for free tickets at the Caps team store on September 20th and 21st. Caps TFC TELUS Canadian Championship Wednesday, September 25th. The atmosphere at BC Place for Cup Finals is always unmatched, so get your tickets now. Check out whitecapsfc.com. All right, Harm, let's get to these Canucks line combinations. JT Miller's not going to play in tonight's game, despite him being used in the promotional graphic to sell tickets and say JT Miller is going to play. JT Miller's not going to play in tonight's game. We have Brock Besser, Pius Suter, Jonathan Lekaremaki, Niels Höglander, Aatu Ratu, Connor Garland, and then on the third line, this one surprised me a little. Denton Heinen with Nils Amon and Linus Karlsson, Wilmer Alriksson, Max Hassan, and Sammy Blais round out the bottom six. I don't want to get to the defense yet, Harm. Just talk to me about the forward lines here, because the thing that surprises me the most is that Denton Heinen's not with Brock Besser.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised just because it's jumbled up without JT Miller, so you weren't going to get that trio together anyway. You can almost go line by line and point to specific guys that really have a lot to prove. I mean, right off the top, Jonathan Lekaremaki on that top line with Besser and Suter. It's going to be interesting to see how those guys fit together as a trio. On paper, I don't think that's necessarily the fastest line in terms of foot speed, but all of them have above average intelligence offensively. So I'm fascinated to see in a short amount of time, can those guys click chemistry wise from that standpoint? And can that create the type of environment where we can see Lekaremaki flash his offensive tools? Now, because neither one of Besser or Suter are dynamic playmakers, I think this is also going to be an interesting test of Lekaremaki in a couple of ways. Number one, can he be the puck carrying transporter for that line, right? Because typically that's what JT Miller often does. You don't really see Brock Besser skating it up through the neutral zone very often. Pius Suter isn't very involved in transition. Whereas we know Lekaremaki has that skill set north-south where he can wind it up, beat defenders one-on-one, create space for himself, create offenses on entry. So number one, can he help the transportation element of that line? And second, can he find a way to shine as a playmaker rather than just a shooter? Because Brock and Suter aren't natural playmakers. Brock's a pretty smart guy, and I think in certain spots in the offensive zone, he'll show off some playmaking chops. But Besser and Suter are definitely shoot first type players. Whereas with Lekaremaki, we know that his shot is his best asset as well. But in camp, I was really impressed with the reads that he was able to make, his vision. That's something that I believe Jake DeBrusk referenced as well. So just because of the stylistic fit with Suter and Besser, I wonder if Lekaremaki might need to carry a little bit more weight as a play driver, setup man to really be the dynamic engine of that line.
It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for Lekaremaki. It's going to be interesting to see how he does tonight. The rest of the forward group, not much to say other than that Höglander, Ratu, and Garland line get another look together. They're going to get an actual preseason game together. I found this a little interesting, Harm. I was reading Jeff's scenes from Morning Skating over at Canucks Army. We wrote about this as well. Aatu Ratu saying he feels ready to play in the NHL. Absolutely love the confidence. And just for transparency, I'll give the full quote because it came on the tail end as well. So he said, yeah, here it is. He said, it doesn't matter whether you're 21 or 31. You just want to make the team. Obviously, as a 21-year-old, I know I have a lot of room to improve and a lot of time to do so. But at the same time, I think I've put in the hours and I feel like I'm ready for it. This isn't the first time we've heard Aatu Ratu be really confident in himself and basically say, like, I should be in the NHL. I feel like I'm ready for it. I don't have any sort of issue with this. I don't, honestly, like I was reading the comments, I don't think many people had any type of issue with what Ratu said. I think you want to see that kind of confidence out of a young prospect. I don't know if it's true, but he thinks he's ready, and that's what you want. You don't want a guy saying, oh no, I don't know about just yet.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't believe, how is the coaching staff or management supposed to believe, right? Every player should come in with that mentality and that mindset of wanting to knock the door down. And honestly, I think that's the line that I'm most excited to see, just because in camp, I mean, part of it isn't just Ratu. It's Höglander and Garland together are just such buzzsaws down low. They're so annoying to play against. They just hound you relentlessly on the forecheck when they control the puck. Both of them, despite being undersized, are pretty hard to knock off the puck. They're strong on their feet, and they're both so elusive on their edges, and the way that they read off of each other, it's a nightmare for defensemen to try and dislodge the puck from them. And it's interesting because I imagined initially, because both of them are undersized wingers, that the coaching staff might be a bit reluctant to play them together. But now that Dakota Joshua isn't available for now, and they had some training camp success, I am legitimately really excited to see how Höglander and Garland play together, because they're just such a pain in the neck for the opposition. And for Ratu, what I'm going to be looking for is all the details. And I imagine that's what Rick Tocchet is going to be examining closely as well. It's not so much that he needs to be the play driver of that line, because Garland and Höglander are going to do the heavy lifting for that. But it's going to be little details like Ratu as the F3. Can he be in the right positions? Can he win battles? Can he support the puck? Can he use his frame to create that extra layer of pressure and havoc? When Garland and Höglander are controlling the puck off the cycle, can Ratu find ways to get open in and around the slot? Because that's an area where Garland is always looking for his line mate in front of the net. And when you look at the difference between why, let's say, Dakota Joshua was so successful on that line versus Ilya Mikheyev down the stretch, do you remember when Joshua got hurt and we saw a little bit of Garland and Mikheyev together? It's because Mikheyev didn't know how to read off of Garland and wasn't in the right spots for those bang bang passing plays. So for Ratu, can he be in those right spots? Also, can he win draws consistently enough? It's going to be a lot about those little details and just looking competent at the NHL level, especially because Seattle on the other end is also icing quite a few NHL veterans. They've got 3 of their top 4 defensemen in the lineup, I believe. Their top 6 lines feature some legit NHL talent. So for Ratu, it's not about blowing the door down and playing amazing. It's just showing that you can hold your own and be a professional.
Yeah, it looks like, honestly, on paper, it looks like the Kraken just have a better lineup than the Canucks do heading into tonight. As we take a look at it, we got Schwartz, Myers, Burakovsky on the top line, Tanev, Gord, Tolvanen, who we once wrote at Canucks Army, Canucks should be all over Tolvanen, who hit the waiver wire. They didn't do it. Kraken did it. And Kraken have Eli Tolvanen. And then their bottom 6 is more, more of what the Canucks are icing in their bottom 6 as well. So it'll be interesting. Joey Daccord gets the start for the Kraken tonight. Jacob, can we pull up the Canucks lines again? I just want to take a quick look at the defense because we haven't talked about it yet. Elias Pettersson getting a shot with Filip Hronek tonight. He spent all of training camp there. I thought in the scrimmage, and I wrote this as well, I thought Elias Pettersson didn't look very good in the scrimmage. He got beat to a few pucks. He got stripped a few times. That was the moment, and we haven't even talked about the scrimmage yet, Harm, but in the scrimmage, that's when it most became clear to me that, okay, it's not a bad thing. He's a young kid. He's a 3rd round pick. Elias Pettersson is definitely not NHL ready. Needs a little bit of time in the HL. And again, it's not a knock on him. It's not supposed to be a negative. It's just that I really noticed it, and I'm curious how he fares tonight.
Yeah, he looked terrific in the first 3 days of camp. But yeah, you're right, in the scrimmage, couple of situations on the breakout where he made mistakes. And again, that's totally normal for a young defenseman his age. And now for him in preseason, it's just about accumulating those reps. And it's okay if he makes mistakes, because then when he goes down to Abbotsford, he's going to be better equipped to cut those out and hit the ground running at the American League level. This is meant to be a learning experience for a player like him. He's not in the same boat as, let's say, like an Aatu Ratu, where Ratu has a lot of professional experience, and now it's okay, you're trying to make a case to be NHL ready. And if you're not making the team out of camp, it's at least, can I be part of the conversation for a call-up mid-season? The expectations are definitely a little bit lower for Pettersson in that type of role. And the other guy that I'd point out on the blue line that, there are a couple that stick out in terms of wanting to have big performances. But on the left side, first and foremost, this is a name that we haven't talked about a lot, Christian Wolanin. When I look at the left side of Vancouver's blue line depth chart, Hughes, Soucy, Forbort, the thing to keep in mind is that both Soucy and Forbort, because of injuries, played less than 41 games last season. So with the risk that those guys might get hurt at some point again, that all of these defensemen in camp or preseason are also contending for who's the next man up in Abbotsford for a call-up if there is an injury on that left side. And that's where, with Kudryavtsev and Pettersson making a strong impression, Wolanin's going to feel the heat that, hey, these young guys are coming, but I've dominated at the American League level, and I don't want to be overlooked. I want to show the coaching staff that I should be the first defender called up if there's an injury on that left side. So he's going to need to have a strong outing. And on the right side as well, now that we know from Adrance's reporting that the Canucks are likely to carry 3 NHL goaltenders on the roster, meaning Canucks are probably only carrying 7 defensemen instead of 8. Mark Friedman is going to be feeling the heat to try and beat out Noah Juleson for that 7th D spot. I thought he was a standout performer in the scrimmage. He scored a goal, but more than that, just simple, steady, safe. He's of course going to be at a bit of a disadvantage because he doesn't have the same size element or the PK chops that Juleson does. But Friedman showed well in training camp in the scrimmage, and I'm sure he's going to be motivated to prove that he should make the team instead of landing on waivers.
He's the goal scorer, man. Like, he scored at the summer skates. That's the thing. The summer skate scrimmage that they did at UBC, he scored. He cheered really loudly. I was there. And then in the scrimmage, he was the goal scorer as well. We didn't talk about the scrimmage because we didn't do a show on Sunday. So quickly, I just wanted to talk about the scrimmage because someone in the chat, and we'll get to anyone else soon, said that Archer Shilovs is who they're going to be watching tonight. Shilovs was brilliant in that scrimmage. Yuri Patero was not. What was the final score again? Like, all I know is Shilov's team was absolutely under siege, but they won the game. It was Team Blue.
Yeah, I think they won 2-1.
Yeah, they won 2-1. I just couldn't remember if he was blue or white. But anyways, Shilov's team, Team Blue, was just under siege. Like, Team White was controlling. Team White was producing a ton of offense. They had majority possession of the puck. They were doubling the shot total. And Team White lost. Despite being, I think, the better team. Shilovs was brilliant in that game. Made some huge saves. I'm looking for that tonight too. Like, someone in the chat, like I said Brad in the chat, Shilovs is the guy to watch for me. Likewise, I absolutely want to see how Archer Shilovs fares here. I do like this a lot from Tocchet, and we'll get to Tocchet's pregame media avail in a second here. Tocchet says that he's not a 60 or 30-30 guy. Like, he doesn't switch out the goaltenders at the halfway point of the game. I like that. I don't like that at all. The idea of switching out in a preseason, like, your goalies need reps. Get them in for the whole game. I love it. And it means Archer Shilovs is going to get the start tonight. Ty Young is his backup. Anything else that you wanted to get to about the lineup before we start talking about what Tocchet said pregame?
Yeah, I'm also going to point out on the bottom 6, and this is also just a big picture sort of takeaway for me coming out of camp in preseason, is when I look at the battle for the 13th forward slot, and I'm not including Daniel Sprong in that conversation because I expect that he'll make the team in all likelihood. But a lot of guys who are on the fringes of trying to make the NHL roster, nobody really jumped out and had the type of performance where you're like, there's no way you can cut him, right? And I'm talking about the Nils Amontier, the Max Sasson, even PDG, who I thought was pretty good in the first couple of days at camp. He faded a little bit. I thought he was only okay in the scrimmage, but also like Linus Karlsson, Sammy Blais, Archie Bains, none of those guys really popped, I thought, in a really meaningful way in camp and in scrimmage. And so I'm looking at Karlsson, Oman, Sasson, Blais in that bottom 6. Can any of those 4 really stand out and start to turn some heads? Plus, I'll also point out that Ulrichsen obviously is not going to come anywhere close to making the team, but even the fact that he got 1 preseason game, I think that speaks volumes and is a really good sign for him at age 19.
Okay, this bottom 6 spot, let's talk about this, because I had to listen to Drance tell me about how great Linus Karlsson is, and I disagree. I know in your guys' takeaways that you wrote,
he wasn't making the case that he's that great. He was just saying don't forget about him in that conversation.
No. He was saying no. The conversation Drance and I had was talking more about how Linus Karlsson was like going to make the roster. Let alone, again, I'm not going to get into it, but it was really funny, Drance's that conversation. But anyways, that spot, like, I'm giving the inside track to Sammy Blais. Like, if I had to put the why
Blais was awful in the scrimmage, man. He had like 3 or 4 turnovers.
Okay, but I raise you this idea, and Tocchet spoke about this too. He loves him some Sammy Blais because Craig Berube likes Sammy Blais, and he talked to Craig Berube a lot about Sammy Blais. I also have a feeling that with Sammy Blais, who, again, like, we've seen this guy play, he's a dog on the forecheck. He likes to throw his weight around. Scrimmages aren't the best environment for a player like that. So I just think the preseason, like, all of those guys we saw in the scrimmage, I don't think they're going to have a ton more to give in the preseason than what they could already do in the scrimmage. Whereas I look at Blais and he's on a PTO. He's not trying to blow up Quinn Hughes when he has the puck, right? So I'm looking at Blais and saying, okay, like, he has I'd say inside track, because again, we've talked about him coming on a PTO. We've wondered if it's going to be a situation where they have some sort of handshake agreement in place. And look, Alvin, you can't ignore that Alvin spoke glowingly about Sammy Blais on day 1 of camp when I asked him about the PTO candidates that were there. didn't have much to say about Dylan Ferguson, and we kind of read between the lines on that one. But Sammy Blais got a lot of love from Alvin. He's getting a lot of love today from Rick Tocchet. He's a guy I'm looking at closely tonight.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you're right. I probably shouldn't judge I think I'm putting a little bit too much stock into him really struggling in that scrimmage. And again, I understand the point that you made about, yeah, he's not going to blow guys up and be a menace on the forecheck the same way he can be in a preseason game. He turned the puck over like 4 times in vulnerable spots. And that's just obviously not going to fly in preseason and regular season games.
So lots to watch for tonight. Let's bring him in. Jeff Paterson joins us. Jeff Paterson joins the show fresh off being at the rink. Jeff, first and foremost, Kevin Lankinen, tell me all about him. How is he as a person? What'd you like when you heard him talk today?
No, forget that. I want to talk about how quickly I drove home from the rink. Not quite at Quadrelli at the top of the Coquihalla Summit speed, but not far off, although it's tougher to do that in city driving. But day turned out to be a longer day than expected down at the rink. I didn't anticipate I'd be there for a bunch of hours, but that's the job. And so I stuck there. And we heard from Kevin Lankinen, and we heard from Teddy Bluger as well for the first time in this camp. He skated with a main group for the first time after being relegated to Group C in the non-contact jersey. He's out of the non-contact jersey, and we can talk about Bluger more. But yeah, Lankinen, he laughed. I mean, he flew in on Sunday from Helsinki. I just got back from Europe a couple of weeks ago, and took me the better part of a week to shake off jet lag. He admitted it had been a whirlwind, and that all these new faces and the new surroundings. But ultimately, he's a hockey player, and the rink is his comfort place. So I think he was happy to be out there in his first skate with the Vancouver Canucks this morning. He was part of the second group, the non-playing group. That most of the guys in the non-playing group are going to play tomorrow night in Abbotsford. And Rick Tocchet and the coaching staff, it was like back to Penticton. They had a dry scrape midway through. They went back out for a second session. And I thought, hang on, like there's 5 games in 7 nights here. Like, why are you grinding all of these players, including Kevin Lankinen? But Lankinen talked about, he's got a long-standing relationship with Marco Terranius, the new goaltender coach. So I think that's going to ease the transition. Familiar faces, Kiefer Sherwood, obviously last year in Nashville, Pia Suter as a member of the Chicago Blackhawks. So I think that helps too. When you walk into a locker room, at least you have a couple of points of reference in guys that have been there if you need to go. Sherwood's new, but Suter's been around. So, if you need a little bit of help, and hey, what does that door on the left mean around here at the rink? Just, little things, whatever the case, he's trying to find his bearings. He didn't have a timeline in terms of how much time he would need around the group to be ready to play games, but they play tonight and tomorrow night. I don't think you're going to see Kevin Lankinen get into either of the games here. And then there's a day off Thursday for the group to catch their breath collectively. And maybe by Friday, they play Friday and Saturday out on the road. So I would think by the weekend, we'd get a look at Kevin Lankinen. I tried to press him a little bit on, was he getting nervous and anxious as camps were starting around the National Hockey League and he was back home in Helsinki. He talked about actually being at ease, and I think that's because he knew that he had this Canucks contract in his back pocket. Maybe didn't love the term, but he knew that it was on the table. He wouldn't get into details about other options around the National Hockey League, just the fact that the Canucks had been talking to him and his agent through the summer months, and ultimately it got down, push came to shove here. Canucks had a need, and he talked about trying to fit in and integrate. Knows that Thatcher Demko is one of the best in the biz when he's healthy and on his game, but he's not around. And so, it's a little different. Last year, he came to camp in Nashville knowing that he was the backup, without doubt. UC Saros was going to play a ton. Here, there's uncertainty about where people fall in the depth chart just because of the Demko situation. But no, Lankinen was very much as advertised. I had heard he was a likable guy, personable, outgoing, and even if he's fighting jet lag, big smile on his face as he stood there and talked to the media for the first time here in Vancouver today.
Pat, all eyes are going to be on Jonathan Lekkerimäki. People are going to be excited to see him play. What did you make of his camp and in scrimmage? Do you think he's got a legit shot to make the team if he has a strong preseason?
I'm coming around to the idea that it is a legitimate option here, an opportunity for him at the very least. I thought he had a decent camp. I love the fact that Canucks put him in a position to succeed right away with Pettersson and DeBrusk and right through the scrimmage. I don't know about you guys, but I had a lot of people in my mentions, like who stood out at camp, and it's 3 days of drills. I think some people sort of lose sight of that it really is hard to evaluate unless a player, and I'm not saying this about Lekkerimäki, but in terms of evaluation, like unless a guy truly cannot keep up. There isn't the bag skate like there was under Travis, where all eyes were on Olli Levy or Oliver Ekman-Larsson in his first go round. And so you try to evaluate off the rush when they're doing 3-on-0s. It's more about being drawn to his shot. And without a doubt, he's got a big league shot. But I think we already knew that from his draft year, from the World Juniors, from his appearance at development camp. Guy can shoot the puck. And so for me, it was a question in the scrimmage of, was he going to be able to read off Pettersson and DeBrusk? Where would he, how did he look in battles? Ice is smaller over here. So those goals of him peeling off the wing and stepping to the middle of the ice, smaller dimensions in North America, is he going to have the time and space? And I think we saw that's going to be a bit of a challenge and an adjustment for him. There was the 2-on-1 where DeBrusk came in on the left side holding the puck, and I was thinking, get it to Lekkerimäki. I want to see the shot. I don't care what Jake DeBrusk does. He's going to make the team, and he's going to score a bunch of goals. I want to see the Lekkerimäki shot. The pass came across a little too late at the back door, sort of a jam play. Didn't result in a goal, but that was sort of, when I jotted down notes from Lekkerimäki in the scrimmage, that was one of the few times that I truly noticed him. But look, this is a great opportunity. It's a different situation, obviously. Go through camp with Pettersson and DeBrusk, and now you're playing with two other guys that you haven't skated with. They were in the other group. No chemistry formed, but Brock Besser is a 40-goal scorer in the National Hockey League. Jonathan Lekkerimäki can learn a lot from Brock Besser. Besser was basically in his skates 6 and 8 years ago as a guy coming out of college and a high draft pick who, had a big shot and has developed his game, obviously, to the point now that he's a 40-goal guy. So, there'll be all eyes on Lekkerimäki. What a great opportunity for him, though, tonight to play at Rogers Arena in front of however many fans are there. But this is going to be the spotlight that he is under now that he is a member of the Canucks organization and trying to make the big league team. I still think it's a bit of a stretch for him, but the way that they've used him here for the first week of camp, I think it's an indication that this is an open audition for him.
Denton Heinen, he's not going to play with the guys that he spent most of camp with. Honestly, through camp, it kind of felt like that Heinen, Besser, Miller trio was maybe the only line that we might actually see on opening night. Now I'd say that the Canucks have 0 lines that we'd see on opening night heading into this game. Any surprise? Like, I know Miller's not playing. Was there a reason given why Miller's not playing, or is it just?
No, I asked Rick. I said, was he supposed to play tonight? Because he was one of the poster boys, and Rick said, look, he was one of the best fitness testing guys in camp. JT doesn't need a ton of run in the preseason. He's been there and done that a bunch. So it almost sounded like a reward for the fitness testing and the leadership we saw in training camp. And no, I thought, okay, maybe he's got a bit of a knock or something that's going to keep him out of the lineup, but that didn't seem to be the case. So they're just going with some different looks. I talked to Heinen briefly. He said, look, I'm a veteran. I get it. Coaches have to look at different guys in different situations. Everybody's here because they're a good player. So, he didn't seem too worked up about the fact that he had been pulled away from Brock Besser at the very least, who's in the lineup tonight. But Danton Heinen's going to skate on the line with Nils Aman and Linus Karlsson, two guys that I do think have something to show and to prove. It almost feels like Aatu Räty has bumped in front of a guy like Nils Aman. Now, it's the start of preseason, so a lot of this is still up in the air and can change. But Räty, given those same line mates that he had, and I know you guys talked about it earlier in the show, Rick Tocchet mentioned Räty this morning and said, everything he does, he attacks 100% to the point where he said this morning at the morning skate, I told him, like, save a little for tonight. So Tocchet said that his speed has increased, that he's noticed that the skating, and that's always been the knock on Räty since he was really drafted by the Islanders and his draft stock fell. Question of, can he keep up? I didn't notice Harman, and you guys were there in camp as well. Like I was watching, I thought he was able to keep up. He's not a burner, and I think he'd be the first to tell you, but I didn't think his skating looked like he was holding him back at any point in the drills or the scrimmage. And so I think it's a bit of a reward for him to get those same line mates, Höglander and Garland. You know what you're going to get. Their motors are going to be running, and we'll see if Aatu Räty's motor can keep up in game action tonight.
When you look at this Canucks lineup for tonight's game, besides Räty and Lekkerimäki, who do you think has the most to try and prove in this game and really make an impression on this coaching staff?
You talked about Sammy Blais. I think in terms of short runways, it's Blais on a PTO. I think others, Vilmer Ulrichsen, I'm really excited to see him in an NHL environment. He had a good young stars. I thought we saw what we see a lot with junior age guys when you get to a main camp against players that have been doing this for a living for a while. That time and space that maybe was there in young stars, it's taken away. There were a couple of times the puck was on his stick, and before he could process and make a play, it was gone because somebody had closed on him. And so, I mean, the fact that he made the first round of cuts and he's getting to suit up in a NHL preseason game, I think that's a bone that the Canucks wanted to throw to this guy. So I'm going to watch him, but the stakes aren't as high. He's going back to junior. We know that. The defenseman, Elias Pettersson, I guess. So we have to get used to the distinction. He is Elias, by the way. I agree with everything you guys said about him in the scrimmage, that there were just moments. There was a play where, and I think it was Hronek, because he was paired with Hronek, ripped the pass across the blue line, and DPD tried to take it in his skates. And you see NHL veterans make that play and either, kick it up to their stick or just control the puck. Puck bounced off his skate right to the other team, and away they went and broke it out. And, it's one play, it's a little thing, but it's just sort of those subtle nuances around the game where if people thought that DPD was going to be the surprise and make the Vancouver Canucks out of camp, clearly you misread sort of the writing on the wall here. This is a 20-year-old that needs to adjust and adapt to life in the National Hockey in North America, the smaller rink. He needs a year down in Abbotsford, but I'm excited to see him play tonight and see what he looks like. So, I think Sammy Blais is at the top of my list. I think Amon and Carlson to a lesser degree, because it's getting a little crunchy now around that 13th forward spot with all the guys that are battling, and who knows what the Canucks are going to do if they, are going to manipulate the roster the way. Are they going to hold 23 guys? Are they going to have 3 goalies? If they have 3 goalies, that means that you're not going to have the full complement elsewhere. So I don't think it's a lock that guys like Nils Amon and Linus Karlsson certainly can't take their spots here for granted. So I would say even if it's night 1 in the preseason, that guys like that have a fair bit to prove and to play for.
Jeff, any other takeaways from training camp? Like, again, this is our first chance to talk to you. We're talking about preseason storylines heading into the year. Anything that stood out from training camp or heading into the preseason?
I thought it was a really well-run training camp, and I think the facility played a huge role. I mean, how many times did Rick Tocchet rave about 2 sheets of ice? And, they put those 2 sheets of ice to really good use. I don't think it'll be long before they go back to Penticton with the main camp. Young stars will continue, but I think the organization was really happy with the way training camp unfolded, the support close to capacity on Sunday. People showed up for all the sessions leading up to the Sunday scrimmage as well. And to be able to stack young stars in training camp and keep, the training staff and the equipment guys and everybody there in one spot for a couple of weeks, just an awful lot to like about training camp in Penticton. And I think from a media standpoint, we all enjoyed our time there as well. So I'd be happy to go back to Penticton if they choose to have training camp there again sometime soon. Otherwise, goaltending was an issue, but obviously they addressed that with the Lankinen signing. So I feel a little bit better about their goaltending situation. Silovs was terrific in the Sunday scrimmage, the 20 minutes that he played. Interesting in the second group of the day today that skated at Rogers Arena. Rick Tocchet's warned us not to read into too much, but Lekaramäki playing tonight. I don't know if he's going to play tomorrow night, but Kiefer Sherwood was on the line with Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk. So we'll see if that's a way that they go tomorrow night in Abbotsford. We know that Petey and DeBrusk have been the poster boys on social, Quinn Hughes as well. So we're expecting that those guys will play. They're not playing tonight, but thought it was interesting at the very least that Kiefer Sherwood had stepped into that spot on the right side at practice today.
Tomorrow, the Canucks are going to announce that none of them are playing because they all did really well on fitness testing. Jeff, you said that you would go back to Penticton. Would you ride back with me?
Yeah, I mean, for all the talk leading in that there were some questions about your driving skills, and Harman was part of the happy carpool on the way up, although he abandoned us. I don't know, maybe got a better offer. Was Drance a better offer? Anyways, you made it home. That's good. But it was just me and Dave on the ride back. And our cruising speed, we made pretty good time. And that was despite, a little bit of rain as we climbed to the summit there on the Coke coming out of Penticton. So Yes, you did a nice job. Car was clean. It was comfortable, spacious and roomy. So yeah, all things considered, I enjoyed I love training camp. I love all the storylines that emerge. And yeah, it's just good to be back around hockey, and it was fun to carpool with you guys. Yes.
Well, one last one from me, J Pat. Just thinking about the 12 forward slots, do you think the Canucks, once Dakota Joshua comes back, can realistically have both Sprong and Lekkerimäki in the lineup, or do you think that they're almost going to end up contending for one sort of role / lineup slot as this, one-dimensional sniper type role that you might have to shelter a bit?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that both of those guys would make the team, and that really would take some manipulating lower in the lineup, I suppose. And that's why, it's there for Lekkerimäki. I think it's a legitimate audition here, but I also think that he would have to blow the doors off the organization, knowing that they can send him down to Abbotsford, and really he probably needs a year of development. But, let's see what he does. This is a goal scorer. I do think that he would have to score in the preseason. It's not enough just to look good and win some puck battles. Ultimately, I think there would have to be a bottom line that would almost make the organization think, we can't deny this young guy an opportunity here, where Sprong has done it before. And, I'm kind of curious to see Sprong's deployment. He's not going to play tonight, but maybe we get a look at him in Abbotsford. Who does he play? How do they use him? The other thing, and it's preseason, and we dive deep into the minutia, but I thought it was fascinating when they lined up and did power play stuff today. Obviously not their top end power play guys, but Brock Besser was taking faceoffs on his strong side as a right shot guy. So something to watch if it happens tonight through the preseason. Is it something that they would look at without right shot centers on the line, through the lineup and on the depth chart? Just a little wrinkle that we hadn't seen. So Brock taking some faceoffs there. But yeah, I think it's an uphill battle for Lekkerimäki, but I'm here for it. I want to see. I mean, it's been a while since the Canucks have sort of had, a blue chip prospect that we've all been hungering to see him do well. We'll see if it starts tonight for Jonathan Lekkerimäki playing with Pia Suter and Brock Besser.
Contract year, Brock Besser announces that he can play center. He said, "Yeah, put me at center." That's what
exactly.
Actually
we talk about him rounding out all the things he can do. He's added face. Well, look, there wasn't really a defensive center to contest. They were sort of just dropping the puck, and he was taking the face off. So he'll have he'll have some opposition tonight. I would assume that somebody on the Kraken will put up a bit of a fight if, in fact, that's the way things shake down. But right off the top, Dave, I heard you. It is game day. This is fun. This is exciting. We've kind of plowed through the offseason to get to this point, and even though it's exhibition action, it's still guys in Canucks uniforms playing games. So I got all sorts of time for it, and 5 games in 7 nights. Just really quickly on Teddy Bluger, he talked about the fact that he wouldn't get into details about what it is exactly that he had done. Another case where he looked at the PR staff when he was asked a question about the specifics of his injury. So the players clearly know the drill of what they're supposed to talk about and what they can't divulge. But he did say that it was something that was nagging him at the end of last year. He had hoped that he could just rehab it in the offseason, but it got to a point where a medical procedure was required. And so now he's trying to catch up. He skated, he said, 3 of the 4 days in Penticton. He said he took the Saturday off, but otherwise he was on the ice there with the main group today, out of a non-contact jersey. But with 5 games in 7 nights here, if he is still a week away, there go 5 of the 6 preseason games. So he said he wasn't making any promises. He hoped that he could get into the final preseason game. And remember, this is a guy that got injured in the final preseason game last year and missed the first 15 games of the season. So had a bit of a tough end of the preseason last year. It's been a tough start for him, but he is confident. Said it a couple of times. He's confident regardless whether he gets into preseason action, he'll be good to go on October the 9th.
Jeff, good stuff as always. Thanks so much for joining us, and appreciate the kind comments about my driving.
All right. Maybe you're going to the game tonight. I was going to say maybe I can get a ride, but I'll see you guys at the rink regardless. We'll worry about carpooling again somewhere down the line. Always fun being on with you. We'll talk to you again soon.
There he is, Jeff Paterson, our pal over at Rinkwide Vancouver. Make sure you go check him out. every Canucks game through the regular season. I believe Jeff told me they were doing 4 in the preseason. So if you haven't already, go to your podcast, wherever you go, YouTube, whatever it is, go subscribe to Rink Wide Vancouver, turn on notifications, and then you'll have the best in market post-game show available to you as it drops when it drops. All right, Harm. I got to get back to this. Sorry, I have to. I was going to save it for anyone else. I was going to ask Jeff about it too, but I've basically narrowed this down. The 13th forward spot is between PDG, Nils Amon, Sammy Blais. I don't want to hear about Linus Karlsson. Linus Karlsson is basically like if someone asks, what would Nils Amon be like if he wasn't a center and also didn't have the same defensive chops? That's what.
Well,
Linus
hold on a
Karlsson
second. The point that Drance brought up, which is valid in my mind, is that if the coaching staff had enough trust to use him in an NHL playoff game, that
before they went and acquired about 5 better forwards in free agency.
But hold on, that still carries weight.
For what?
I'm not saying he's a lead contender, but you can't immediately qualify and be like, yeah, he's basically already cut.
No, you can. I think you can. I think you absolutely can.
Sammy Blais doesn't even have a contract yet. And you're talking about him already having the inside track.
Absolutely. Undoubtedly. Like little doubt in my mind. I don't want to make a bet on it because Sammy Blais on a PTO, so it's really easy to just release him. But I would put a small sum of money that Sammy Blais lasts longer in the preseason than Linus Karlsson does. I would.
I'm not saying, and let me be clear. I do think Blais has a better chance than Karlsson overall. I'm just saying don't discount Karlsson completely.
And I'm just saying I'm going to. Also, the context of Drance and I's conversation was they were showing power play units, and Drance brought up Linus Karlsson when we were talking about the power play, and I said, he's not even going to make the team. And then that's how Drance and I got into that conversation. I'm hyping it up. I'm exaggerating, as I so often tend to do. All love to Drance. I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't have a lot of time for Linus Karlsson, to be completely honest with you. And you're right. It is a good point that he did play playoff games, but I don't want to talk about Linus Karlsson for more than like 3 minutes because he's not going to make the team. He's not going to make the team.
That's fair. But if we're talking about all the guys that are in contention for the 13th forward job, he's at least part of that group of a handful of guys.
I'll just leave.
You don't have to like him. You don't have to. He can be the guy that you don't want to make it out of that group.
Okay, if he's in the conversation, like the conversation can't have 7 people in it. Is my point, and I don't think there's anything Linus Karlsson could do over the next week to just completely stand out above PDG, Nils Amon.
PDG, Nils Amon, the real murderer's row of competition to have to beat. What a high bar that is.
We're talking about Linus Karlsson. Yes, it is a murderer's row.
They're all just guys.
They're all just guys, but they're all guys that are better than Linus Karlsson. Now I'm turning this into an anti-Linus Karlsson thing, and I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. Look, the Canucks don't have any right shot centers. The only way Linus Karlsson is ever making this roster is if he learns to play center. Like he's done it. He did it in junior.
That's not happening.
It's not happening.
He's a winger.
So he's not making the team. This is what I'm trying to get at. We don't need to talk about Linus Karlsson for we've already exhausted way too much time on it. Now I'm being mean to Linus Karlsson, which isn't what I intended to do. But come on, what are we talking about? Like, no, Nils Amon's cut because Linus Karlsson stood out. What are we talking about?
I'm just saying you can't completely leave him out of the conversation.
But why can't you? I need someone to explain to me why we can't, other than
because why can't Nils, why is Nils Amon or PDG that great that if again, this is an if, right? Over preseason, if Linus Karlsson dominates, you're telling me that you'd go, no. We got to leave a roster spot for Nils Amon or PDG.
Yeah, I don't know. I just disagree. Okay, let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by our friends over at Mr. Lube. Here it is. Let's pull it up. I got to pull it up too. Okay, there it is. Our poll question brought to you by Mr. Lube. Will Elias Pettersson finish the season with over under 90.5 points? Over 90.5 or under 90.5 are our options. 85.5% of voters say over. Under 14.5%. I'm taking the over here.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I don't think 90.5 is the right mark there. Pettersson had 89 last year, and we were talking about it as this disappointing down year for him. He dealt with knee tendonitis from January onward. Plus, he had Ilya Mikheyev stapled on his line for most of the season, whereas now he has Jake DeBrusk. I expect Pettersson to be a lot closer to the 100-point mark.
Okay, let's get to this then, because I wanted to bring this up. Oh, wait, before we do that, sorry, I have to also tell you that was our poll question. It was brought to you by Mr. Lube. Mr. Lube and Tires, Change Your Oil, Change Your Wipers event is on now. Visit MrLube.com to download your coupon for a free pair of Goodyear hybrid wiper blades with any oil change for a limited time at Mr. Lube. Find them at one of their 18 locations in the Lower Mainland. All right, Harm, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. And Harm, I'll tell you, because you said you were confused about the line there. Right now, you can go get Elias Pettersson to register over 90.5 points at minus 110 odds, and it's also minus 110 if you take the under. So it's even. You can pick what you do. Minus 110 on both ends there. I think we're both taking the over. Elias Pettersson, total points 90.5. And I know you're just most excited that I didn't do a Mariners bet.
Yeah, I'm legitimately blown away that this is first of all, not just a non-Mariners bet, but a non-baseball bet.
Well,
I can't remember last time we had that.
It's hockey season. We've started. We're officially back. I said it. We're back. That was our bet of the day. Brought.
Do you have a Mariners update over the last few days? I don't know what's happened.
They're still kicking heading into the final series. They're down 1.5 games in the standing, or 2 games, because I think the Tigers played today. They got to win out, and
it's a long shot at this point. But you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just a chance. I think they're done. But
yeah. That's what someone might tell you. So let's get to our second Bet3. No, I'm kidding. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account.
I think, as an aside, it's fitting that you lost money at the casino in Penticton.
That was the first time I ever lost doing blackjack. That was wild. Anyways, thanks for that, Harm. Let's get to anyone else as we close up the show. The Vancouver Canadians thank C's for another great season at the Nat this summer. If you're looking to guarantee your seat for all the action in 2025, please visit CanadiansBaseball.com or call 604-872-5232. All right, folks, get your anyone else's in the YouTube live chat. Mine was really going to be a thing about the 13th forward spot. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit here, but I'm just looking at...
In retrospect, like 2 weeks from now, we're going to be like, why did we spend 5 minutes passionately debating? Like, why does Carlson PDG and Nils Amon?
You're right. I'm already thinking it. We're gonna, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, this one from Adam Voth in the chat. Could you see DeBrusk move to the JT line, Hogs and Lekkerimäki with Pettersson? Also, it's Lekkerimäki. I'm trying to get better at that. I was talking to Batch about it. It's Lekkerimäki, so I'm trying to get better at that. But anyways, could you see DeBrusk move to the JT line? Harm, you already know this. I've talked about this all summer. I've talked about how it's a it's almost a foregone conclusion in my mind that at some point the Pettersson line is going to slip up a little bit and they're going to put DeBrusk on that line and he's going to be a really solid fit with JT Miller and Brock Besser. And from there, it's history. And then they're going to have to go get another winger for Pettersson in free agency. I've been telling you that all summer. I've been predicting it. So Adam Vought's asking if I could see it. I could see it, and I could see it for a while now.
Yeah, I just don't want to see it because in my mind, Höglander and Lekkerimäki isn't enough help for Pettersson, right? Lekkerimäki, for as promising as he may be, is still only 20 years old. He's going to need time to learn the ropes. And as much as I love Nils Höglander, last season showed that he still has a ways to go in upping his consistency as a full-time top 6 player. So yeah, could there be a scenario where DeBrusk eventually ends up on the Miller line? Yeah, at some point this season, just because you have to go to the line blender at some point. Yeah, we'll see it. But I don't want an extended stretch where it's DeBrusk, Miller, Besser on the top line together, and Pettersson all of a sudden doesn't have top 6 caliber line mates again.
All right, did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we close out here?
Nope.
Excellent. All right. It's another show edition of Canucks Convo tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow, folks. We will see you then. But for now, we'll close it out for my co-host, Harman Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar. My name is Dave Virgilli. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.